Aule the Smith is one of the most important but sometimes overlooked characters within the Lord of the Rings and Tolkien's Legendarium. Overlooked when considering how vital he is to the story that developed and its protagonists, as well as the wider mythology that Tolkien created. Aule is the one who forged the dwarven race in defiance of Eru Ilúvatar, of God himself. Aule is the master of all craftsmen, and he is the one that created the vessels of the sun and the moon that brighten the skies and give life to the world and its people. He made the two lamps and fashioned the very chain that restrained Melkor following his defeat, and which was named Angenor, meaning iron. Aule the Smith was the most knowledgeable in the art of crafting, and perhaps in the art of creating in general, second only to Eru. What this most great of the Valar also was, however, was the teacher of some of the darkest and most evil beings in all of Tolkien's writings, Sauron and Saruman, and a contributor to what was perhaps Middle-earth's most morally grey character, Fëanor himself. In this video, we'll explore the themes of Aule's story and examine whether or not his close proximity to evil is coincidental or a deliberate decision on Tolkien's part to further enrich the philosophical themes of his world. To start off, Aule the Smith was a lover of creating new things. He adored beauty, and as such, he adored bringing more and more beauty to the world, more light, whereas characters such as Melkor and Fëanor also had a fascination, or rather obsession with creation. What made them different is their desire to own or dominate that which they had created, and if they couldn't have them, then nobody else would. Melkor, in his search for the power of true creation, of the secret fire, grew mad, and darkness spread in his heart. His love for creation had transformed into his hate of God and wished to replace him, thus either gaining the true power of creation previously denied to him or destroying everything out of spite. Aule did not much care if he possessed the beauty he forged or if he had anything to gain personally by its forging. The only things he cared about were the process of forging and the beauty that followed. His motives were true and his heart was pure, and never strayed from Ilúvatar's designs for him, his true designs, his intentions for his soul. He did disobey him though. Aule had played an important role in the creation of the world, of the earth itself, of the lands of Arda, and everything hidden below the surface. He had seen the glory of Ilúvatar's intentions during the music of the Ainur, and he had grown tired of waiting for the awakening of the children of Ilúvatar. As such, with love always in his heart, despite his impatience, he forged by himself and without permission the race of the Dwarves, becoming known as their father and perhaps even worshipped as their god, and certainly revered most out of all of the Valar. When Eru discovered what Aule had done, he reprimanded him, and as Aule was ready to destroy his creations with a heavy heart, Ilúvatar accepted them as his own and made them his adopted children, giving them a part of his flame imperishable and granting them their own soul and free will. His one request was that they wake up after the intended firstborn, the elves, and so it was that after a long time, Durin woke and walked alone. The reason why Eru was accepting of Aule's insubordination was partly the smith's pure intentions, and of course his genuine repentance and taking of responsibility once the deed was done. The point of all of this is to show that Aule has the skills, and he may even have the motives to do things not meant for him, just like Melkor and Sauron did evil deeds, and yet he does not. He, at his core, stays true. And that is because he maintains his belief and faith in God through his humility, and it is the lack of humility and an excessive amount of its opposite, pride, that characterize his pupils Sauron and Saruman, as well as Fëanor indirectly through the teachings of Matan. They were all of them inclined in the crafting of beautiful things, Sauron and Fëanor especially, and Aule simply passed on the knowledge required to bring forth more beauty to the world. He was happy to help them achieve that, and they in turn were happy to accept the help and pursue him as their master. With Melkor's discord, however, whether that be directly through the corruption of Myra into Sauron, or indirectly through creating the circumstances that led to Fëanor's fall and the oath for the Silmarils, these characters did not use their knowledge for good. Greed overtook them, the search for power, for prestige, for authority, for renown, for domination. They were unable to handle the power of creation, even on as small a scale as crafting. The reason why Aule attracted these characters is not because he did anything wrong or he was evil himself, but because the gift with which he was blessed by God, being the smith, was a position that garnered an unbelievable amount of power, and moreover required an unbelievable amount of self-control and humility in order to manage it without falling to evil. Aule had all of those things, but his pupils ultimately did not. As such, it is my belief that being the pupils of the Master of Crafts was a test of their character and self-control, a test which they failed, and anyone else put in their position would have had a great challenge to deal with as well. Being able to maintain your humility and acknowledging your secondary role in God's world, while also having the knowledge and power to rival God's creations. This, of course, is a recurring theme throughout Tolkien's writings, and Aule's story is yet another example of it. Tolkien was greatly fascinated and also concerned about the effect power and the authority that resulted from it had on the human soul. He was greatly critical of his superior officers ordering men around like cattle while remembering his time in the Western Front, and he was even more critical of what the advancement of technology, of crafts as you might say, may have on humanity as a whole, of whether or not humanity, like Sauron perhaps, would be able to withstand having the capacity to destroy the world with nuclear weapons, whether or not consumerism would consume our souls, or our factories destroy the very nature that gives us life, of whether or not, like Aule, we have the ability to contain ourselves. And it is no mistake that the wife of the Master of Crafts and of the making of artificial things is the Lady of Nature and of Life, of the environment, the Lady Yavanna. The union between these two characters was not random, and it perfectly encapsulates what Tolkien's own beliefs were of how humanity should function. We have the capacity to make great things, but we must learn to tame ourselves for our own good, and always work in conjunction with nature. To understand that, despite our great power, we are, individually, while priceless, still but a part of God's or Eru's designs. What I also find to be no coincidence is that the race that Aule the Smith created, the Dwarves, are also characterized by some of the flaws of Aule's pupils. While the Dwarves, like Aule, love the forging of beautiful crafts and are exceptionally powerful in that regard, they do not escape the trap of pride that results from their skill. They are characterized by greed, and that is the singular thing that leads to their downfall time and time again, whether that be in Doriath or in Moria or in the Lonely Mountain. The one thing that managed to save the Dwarves was their resilience to corruption through their disinterest in domination, unlike Saruman and Sauron. Their disinterest, of course, which may stem from the fact that dominating others would take precious time away from their crafts. What it ultimately comes down to, though, is this. Aule the Smith himself does not attract evil through any misdeed or mistake. The knowledge that he possesses simply has the capacity to give its recipient a choice. You either accept these gifts with humility, under the grace of Eru Ilúvatar and according to the greater good, or, while using these gifts, you become possessive, dominating, greedy and prideful. And while for the entirety of this video I've tried extremely hard not to use a particular famous phrase, I think it is warranted to say that with great power comes great responsibility. Firstly, great responsibility towards your own soul, and once you have mastered yourself, a great responsibility to do good for the world. Just like Aule has done good for the world again and again through the many challenges that Arda has faced. Thank you very much for watching.